broadcasting live out of a basement in Appleton, Wisconsin. You're tuned into Fox City's Core on WCZR Code Zero Radio. We're the show that gives you an opportunity to call in and be a part of the show. Our call-in line is 920-358-0795. Core.
David Fry, also known as Fryman, is a talented guitarist and a songwriter. He's a driving force behind the punk and grunge-influenced rock band Am Girl Sperm. Additionally, David has put out multiple albums under a lot of different band names. Some of them were Fall Away Angels and the Fryman Project. I'd like to welcome David and special co-host for today, Betsy, to WCZR Code Zero Radio. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Good.
Thank you.
This is exciting that we get Betsy, and a better introduction for Betsy. She's the front person for Am Girl Sperm, so this is kind of a unique opportunity to kind of have you turn the tables on Fryman a little bit.
There you go.
I like it.
It's scary.
So let's get right to the Fryman here. You've put out so much music. I've heard that by your estimates, you've written over 1,500 songs.
Yeah. It's kind of a crazy amount of songs, but they're not all very good. So, you write a lot of stuff and a little bit of it sticks. So, I just believe that if you're writing a song, you should finish it. Like, I've got friends who start songs and never finish them. And I just have always believed you should finish them, if for no other reason, just the exercise of working through the issues of a song or trying to figure out the right chord change or whatever you learn by doing so. So, yeah, I've written a lot of songs over the years, but I've been doing it a long time too. So,
do you have an inventory of the songs that you've written? How many do you think disappeared into the air?
Well, I've got lyrics for all of them. And I've got recordings of a big chunk of them because as I'm writing, I have a little digital recorder. Well, it used to be the tape machine, cassette tapes back in the day, but now it's a digital. So I do have recordings of a lot of them. But yeah, if I go back and page through the books, I've got the lyrics, but I can't remember the melodies for a lot of them.
Well, and to let the viewers know who might not know, our co-host, you're married to Fryman.
I am, yes.
Has David been into songwriting since the time you guys met, or is that?
Yeah, actually, one of the first nights we met, he had a real hard time convincing me that he was the singer in a band. That was pretty funny. But yeah, he has written songs since before I met him, and he's written them consistently over the 26 years we've been together.
Yeah.
Were you awed by the songwriting off the bat?
Well, sometimes I'm odd that when we have an argument, he'll disappear down to his little studio and come back with a song about it. So
Right.
you have to be careful when you're married to a songwriter.
Yeah, it was quite comical when we first met. We were sitting at a local bar. I had gone up and played a short little set with her brother, who is a musician in town, Jim. And afterwards, I was talking to her at the bar, and she was like, "Oh, are you in a band?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm in this band, the Waist High Bandits." And she was like, "No, you're not. My brother knows the lead singer, and they're on the radio, and they're this and that. That's not you." And I'm like, "No, really, it is me." And she's like, "No, no." And I'm like, "Do I have to go get my CD out of my car and like show you?" And she's like, "Yes." So I had to actually walk out to my car and get the CD to prove I was the lead singer in the band. I do not look like a lead singer, I guess.
And to be fair, I thought he was just trying to pick me up.
Yeah.
Which he was.
Which I was.
The Waist High Bandits, that was the first band that you were in. Were you doing anything before that?
No, I had just started really writing songs not too long before that. I came to town, I met Mark Lamar, and started working at his studio, and I met Jim Graves and Laura Peterson, and they invited me to join their acoustic band called Acoustic Issue. And so I was in this little acoustic band But I was doing a lot of original material inside that band, and Jim, who was the guitar player for the band, was like, "Hey, we should put an actual rock band together," and so that's how that came about. So that was really my first real band where we were doing kind of a lot of original material and stuff. And then because I was working at the studio, I had worked out a deal with John and Lamar that for every 3 hours I worked at the studio, I got an hour of studio time instead of getting paid. I was like, I'll trade you for studio time. So we were able to record our first album in Major Look's world-class studio, so it was great.
Well, and you learned quite a bit from recording there.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I owe such a debt to both John and to Lamar because, I didn't know the first thing about writing or recording the gear, and they took me under their wing and taught me, all about EQ, all about, we were still running tape back in those days. So, working the tape machines and things like that. And then, just giving me the opportunity. So when bands would come in, if they didn't have time to do a band, they'd say, Fryman, you want to run this band over the weekend? And I'd go in and run these bands, and you learn on the fly. So it was just a great kind of petri dish of learning everything, and then seeing Lamar. The way he worked with bands and how he EQ'd things and the approach he took to mixing and things like that. It was really a great learning experience for me. So I owe a huge debt of gratitude to both of those guys for letting me do that.
How long did the Waist High Bandits stay around for?
Well, the Bandits, I think we were a band for, maybe like 3-4 years. We sort of had a lot of radio play, and Columbia Records was interested in us, and it was kind of getting to be a thing. But then there was a lot of internal kind of conflict within the band, as there always is, about songwriting and volume and different things, and it just started to kind of fall apart. When we didn't get our record deal from Columbia Records, things kind of just got tense within the band, and so we ended up kind of setting that aside, and eventually we started another band called Lily Mars, and kind of pursued that after that. So
you had if you don't mind, you had a great story about stage volume.
Yeah.
with the Waist High Bandits.
Yeah, well, that's always a big problem. It is, you've got different guys in the band who like different volumes, and we towards the end there was a lot of tension within the band anyways, and we had a great bass player, Tim. We called him Mad Dog. He was a great bass player, but he was a jazzer. He came out of the university and he was a jazzer, and he liked real low stage volume. And Jim, who was a GIT guy, is that what it is? The Guitar Institute out in LA, and he was a heavy rock guy, and he liked a lot of stage volume. And the two of them were always kind of at odds about how loud we should be playing. And this particular night, this was really kind of the end of the band, was we did this charity gig at CJ Maxx, and Tim had he had a jazz show up in Door County or something later that day. And Jim, who was our guitar player, was playing really, really loud and was blowing Tim's ears. And Tim kept asking him to turn down, and Jim kept turning it up just to be, Jim. And they came pretty close to coming to blows afterwards, and that was about the end of that band. Tim was not real happy at that point. So. But interestingly, he did join Lily Mars with us later, so I don't know. We worked it out.
How long did Lily Mars last?
Lily Mars, I think, was about a 2-year project. We recorded one full album, it's really one of the best albums I've ever recorded. We did it at my home studio. I wish we had done it in a real studio because the playing and everything on it was so good. And we were in the middle of doing our second album when that band kind of fell apart. So we did finish the second album, but it was a lot of kind of me finishing stuff that was not quite done. So, but that was a great band. Greg Thornburg on drums, who is just this amazing drummer out of Madison. So yeah, that was a great band.
As far as the musical style, was it similar to the Waist High Bandits?
It was a little more the Bandits. The Bandits were doing something really original at that time. So. We got a lot of radio play, and we did this radio show down in Milwaukee, a live performance on one of the channels down in Milwaukee. And the guy named what we were doing was acoustic alternative, and he had said it's so original, nobody, I've never heard this kind of thing. So it had a lot of heavy acoustic rhythm and stuff, but then big guitars. And now everybody kind of does that. Goo Goo Dolls and all these bands came along. But at the time, nobody was really doing that. It was kind of a unique thing. Whereas Lily Mars was much more of a rock. It had a lot of pop tendencies, but it was more, there was a lot less acoustic kind of vibe to it. It was driven a lot more by the, electric guitars and things than perhaps Waist High Bandits was.
Well, so in those bands, both those bands, primarily you were playing guitar?
Yeah.
Acoustic or electric, both?
I played both in both bands, but in the Waist High Bandits, probably 90% of what I played was acoustic. In Lily Mars, it was probably about 50-50.
Well, I know you're a Counting Crows fan because you went to see them at Lambeau Field this year, and you put up a lot of great video clips and pictures. But Counting Crows, was that an influential band for you when you were playing in some of the earlier projects?
Well, the Counting Crows really, they sort of hit a little after Waist High Bandits. So they weren't a big influence on my early material, but they became a big influence on me in terms of the material, that even the material I'm writing to this day, because lyrically they do such interesting things, and just the textures of their songs and the way they mix things, and sort of the approach they take is very unique album to album, which I really, I think a lot of bands sort of find their vibe and then they kind of get stuck with it, right? I've always tried to write a completely different sounding album every time. I come out with a new album, I want it to be real different. And I think they've done that. So that's been a big influence on me.
What happened after Lily Mars?
So Lily Mars, what did come after Lily Mars? I sort of started doing what I called my Fryman Project records, which was really, I sort of started to make the decision I really didn't want to play live anymore. I didn't really like the tensions that were in the band situation. There was always something going on. Somebody couldn't make a gig, or you were trying to book a gig and somebody, was in a different band and couldn't play that gig or whatever. It just got to be sort of a pain. And the other thing is, I don't really consider myself a musician. I don't really consider myself a lead singer, songwriter kind of a guy. And so it was a lot of stress for me fronting a band, to be honest with you. So I really decided to focus on songwriting and recording. And I built my studio, and I started really hunkering down on writing and recording. That became really my focus, and it's continued to be my focus. So, I've had a number of different kind of evolutions, where I've put out stuff that I've done pretty much all the instruments. I've programmed the drums, played the guitars, played the bass, did the keyboards. Some of that's pretty bad because I'm not a great musician, but it's, it is what it is. But then also just finding guys to play with, right? Like Lamar, I started doing albums with Lamar, and then I did, a lot of recording with Brooke St. James out of Milwaukee, and just a lot of different people that I started recording with. I did continued recording a lot with Jim Graves. But that really became the focus, was writing and recording and trying to take my music writing to the next level.
He did do a really fun project out in LA. That was really kind of unique.
Yeah.
If you want to share about that a little bit.
Well, yeah, I did a recording project. At the time, this gal, most people probably know her if you're into music, but Tal Wilkenfeld, she was the bass player for Jeff Beck's band, and she was in the process of writing and recording an album, her first album where she was going to be singing. She had done a couple instrumental albums, I think, up until that point, but she was going to be singing and fronting a band, and she was looking to raise money. And one of the things you could do was you could buy a session with her and Vinny. So Vinny was the drummer for Jeff Beck's band, and you could kind of rent them for the day. And I thought, my God, I got to do that. Like, that would be incredible. But I very quickly realized, me not being a great musician, like, I would be so outclassed. So I got my buddy Lamar to agree to do the session with me. And so we took a number of his songs and a number of my songs. We recorded some basic tracks and then went out to LA and spent the day in the studio with Tal and Vinny, and just had the most amazing recording experience of my life. It was just awesome. So that was a lot of fun. And we got some great tracks out of it.
What happened to those tracks?
They're on an album called LA Days. So I got to get that up online one of these days, but I do have CDs.
How many albums do you have currently out?
I don't know exactly, but I believe I've recorded and printed 20 albums. I'm pretty close to 20, and we're in the process of, we're going to be starting hopefully next week or the week after the third Am Girl Sperm album. And then I've already written the next Fryman Project album. That one's ready to go. So we'll have 2 more coming hopefully pretty quick.
Well, this is like, it blows my mind. So, I mean, these are, this is the amount of CDs like maybe somebody would put out their whole career. And this is just a small little portion of what you've put out. Before we get to Am Girl Sperm, so you eventually did the project Fall Away Angels.
Yeah.
And why rebrand to a name like Fall Away Angels when it sounds like you were releasing stuff under the Fryman Project prior to that?
Yeah, well, that was really just because I started working with Mark Goldie and his studio, the Rock Garden studio, and then all the players that he brings in, like Woody and Chris and Underwood and all those guys. We started working, and it just felt real different. It didn't feel like a Fryman Project. Up until that point, I had done 2 Fryman Project albums with Lamar. I had recorded one with Brooke, but we hadn't put it out. In fact, we still haven't put it out. That's another album I got to put out one of these days, thinking about it. But so it really came down to, it just felt different. It felt like a completely new project, and I just thought it should have its own name. I don't know.
Where did you pull that name out of?
I don't remember.
It must have been like something that was catchy enough to you where you thought, well, I'm just going to put this new band name in here and call it Fall Away
I'm
Angels.
sure I thought of it. I have a weird way of thinking of band names and then putting them away for years. Like the Waist High Bandits, it's comically the name that I got that name because even before I was playing guitar, I was working for this lawn care company. And I used to go out on the lawns and measure the lawns and then tell people like how much it would cost to fertilize their lawn. That was my job. Well, the one day I'm out on one of these lawns and these kids are playing cowboys in the backyard and they held me up. And so I gave them each $5, ha ha ha. I get in my car and I'm like, oh my God, I just got robbed by a bunch of waist high bandits. And I thought, someday I'm going to have a band and I'm going to name it the Waist High Bandits. And I just put it in the back of my head. Same with Am Girl Sperm, you know. So I'm sure at some point I thought of Fall Away Angels would be a great name for a band, but I honestly don't remember where that came from.
Well, it's not only do you have a lot of different band names, but the all the albums, you're a photographer as well. And
Yeah.
a lot of these albums have your photography on the front and back. There are some, like, I don't know if...
That's my daughter's artwork.
Okay, so I mean, they're very personable
Yeah.
projects.
Yeah.
When did I Am Girl Sperm come into existence? And I know you've been on the show before, but for people that haven't seen
Sure.
the first...
Well, that was really a COVID project. So when COVID hit, you know, like everybody, I was sitting around. You couldn't leave your house. You couldn't do anything. And I had this idea for many years of writing a punk album with a female lead singer. And I suddenly had the time to do it, to try it. I didn't know if I could or not. And so I just started, you know, I took a weekend and I just started writing these crazy punk songs. And I wrote this album, and I just kind of put it away thinking someday, you know, I'll record this thing. I'll find the right female singer and we'll record this album. And so I didn't really think anything about it. We were kind of in the middle of doing some of the Fall Away Angels projects and things. And the one day I mentioned it to Mark Goldie, and I said, "Yeah, I've got this punk album, and we need to find a female singer." And you know, we just started talking about it, and boom, we started recording. But then we couldn't find a singer. You know, we had approached Sean Marie, and she was kind of interested, but she didn't really like the name of the band because she felt like it might not, you know, fly with her work. And in any event, my wife one day says, "Well, I'd like to just try to sing one of the songs." And I'm like, "Honey, you don't really sing, you know." And she's like, "But I'd like to try." So she's like, "Write me a song that I could sing." So I wrote her a track, and she sang it, and it was instantly perfect. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, it was the perfect voice for the project. And so the album that I had written, you know, that weekend wasn't going to quite work with this new track. So then I had to rewrite a whole new album for Betsy's voice and stuff. And so that's kind of how that all came about. But
well, I did have to laugh too because, you know, we weren't concerned at all with the name of the band, but David actually did get a call from his direct supervisor about the name of the band.
yes, they received several complaints. But it all worked out.
Well, this band got you off the bench as far as playing live. I'm Girl
Yes.
Sperm hit the road, did some shows. How did that feel to get back in front of a live audience?
Well, it was actually fun because there was no pressure on me. I didn't have to front it. I didn't have to sing. I just did some background vocals and played guitar. So it was great. It was really fun. And it's funny because, you know, we did two shows. We did two festival shows. And I kind of joke, it's like, you know, there's people who say, "Do you remember when you saw Hendrix in London?" And I'm like, it's like, "Do you remember when you saw Girl Sperm in Menasha?" You know, it's one of those legendary shows. There's only two of them. And I don't know if there'll ever be another one or not.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Well, I see that Judy Ryan had asked if I Am Girl Sperm was going to do any shows for the new album, Badlands.
Yeah.
Is there any talk of possibly getting the band back together to...
Well, you know, I would do it, but you know, it's Betsy's band, so she would have to be into it, and Goldie would have to be into it. So I don't know, but I would do it because there's no pressure on me. I get to just play guitar, and that's kind of fun, you know.
I would do it. I had fun, even though I couldn't hide behind a guitar. They handed me a tambourine for one song.
Yep.
But no, I would do it again. I had fun doing it.
You had to feel strange the first time you went up there and did that.
It was really strange. You know, you kind of always as a kid, when you're, singing along to with your hairbrush as the microphone, you always kind of have this image of it, but getting up and doing it is completely different. But I actually had fun with it. I had a lot more fun than I thought. And the first time was intimidating, but after that I realized it was just going to be whatever it was. So there was no real use getting completely stressed out about it.
Right. So you never know. You never know. Who knows?
Well, now that you pulled Betsy into your world, are you going to go into hers and start playing some hockey?
Yeah, I don't know. My son's got me bowling, and my back is killing me every day from that, so I don't know if I could play hockey. I'm too old.
The new I Am Girl Sperm album is called Badlands, and it's moved away a little bit from the punkier grunge to more, in my opinion, more traditional rock. I believe the second track has a blistering guitar solo. There is some keyboard, I think, on track 3 or 4.
There is.
It's a well put together album, and we were talking when you got here. It's one of those that first time I heard it, I thought I liked the first album better, but then the more I listened to it, it actually grew on me. Now I really love this album quite a bit.
Yeah, well, it's different, and I think again, part of my philosophy of writing is I don't like to write the same album again. So to me, the story is evolving. I mean, the whole idea of the band was to write this trilogy of albums, right? The story of this young gal, and so as she starts to evolve, in my mind, the music has to evolve. So it does sound different. And the third album, which I've just finished writing, it's going to be even a little different. A little different. Betsy is instructing me they all have to be bangers, but I don't know. I think there's going to be a little more bluesy influence in this album than perhaps we saw on the first couple. There's going to be a couple bangers, but I don't know. I think the music and, I think the character is evolving, and so the music should evolve with the character.
And one of the things that's actually really fun is I can tell David, hey, I'd love you to write a song about this. Like, what do you think of that? And within 24 hours, he has the song for me. So I can give him the craziest idea. I mean, I called him just drunk off my ass at a bar one night, and I'm like, you've got to write Sex and Salsa. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yes, that's going to be the hit of the century. I came home and he had written it. So there's like this superpower that he has where you can just throw something at him and he writes about it. But the song Sex and Salsa is on one of the albums. I think that's on Spotify, and it's a great song. What's
it about?
Yeah,
Sex and Salsa.
Sex and Salsa. It's on one of the first Fryman Project albums with my buddy Lamar. He did a great job. That's the great thing. For me, the great blessing of my life truly has been to meet people like Mark Lamar, like Goldie, like Woody, and all these different characters, Chris and Underwood and Andy Welsh, just an amazing drummer, and Amanda, who sings background on all my records. I mean, just all these different people, Brooke, Billy Friday. I mean, all these people that are so talented, and they're willing to play on my stupid little songs. You know what I mean? Like, it just takes everything to this level that I couldn't have imagined, when I first started playing guitar. It's just been such, really a blessing in so many ways to be surrounded by so many talented people who are willing to give of their talent to make your stuff sound good. You know what I mean? It's a very, And I think this area in particular, this music scene in Appleton and Green Bay, kind of this Fox Valley thing, is very unique because everybody is willing to do that, and they do work really hard at it. And then to play with people like Greg Koch or Tal or Vinny, that's just icing on the cake, But yeah, it's been great, and to me that's what makes it so fun to do the recording stuff is because you never know what you're gonna get, Well,
and you've used people on multiple projects, Follow Angels, the Fryman Project. Obviously, Amanda, great voice with Girl in the Gun. I know she's done stuff for Horace Green. Woody, of course, has got his fingerprints all over quite a bit.
Yeah.
Mark's got his own kind of version of the Wrecking Crew over there at the studio. Is there any chance, possibly, David, put you on the spot, that maybe you would do a 1 or 2 off show where you got Amanda, Woody, Andy, all these people together to play songs from your vast catalog? Because you really could play one song off each album and probably fill a show.
Well, never say never. Never say never, but I just, fronting a band, like, to me is, I don't know, it's just not something I really, really have this driving desire to do, I guess. You know what I mean? It's fun in the moment when you're doing it. It's a lot of fun, and particularly, if you get an audience that really likes what you're doing. But to me, the greatest thrill I ever had, probably musically, was there was a band called Jukebox Heroes back in the day, and they recorded my tune Alien Flowers for their album, and we were at Summerfest, and I was there. I'll never forget this as long as I live. I was there with my cousin, and we're watching Jukebox Heroes, and they start playing my song, and the crowd puts up their lighters like they used to in the old days, and all these people are swaying to my song with their lighters. And to me, that was like, that's what music is for me. Like, I didn't want to be the guy on the stage singing the song, but to know I had written the song and people were enjoying it, that to me was a thrill. So fronting a band isn't, like, I would much rather, I have always said, like with the Waist High Bandits and all the other bands, I've always said we should find a real singer, like somebody who can really sing, because to me, the songs would be much more interesting than with my goofy voice, But
I don't think so. I like his voice. I think it brings a lot to the songs, and I don't think they would be the same with someone else singing them. Your voice is interesting.
Have you thought about songwriting for other people? I know that's big business nowadays.
Well, I have done a little bit of that. Ron Callista's released, I think, 3 or 4 or 5 of my songs. My buddy Lamar released a few of my songs and sang a bunch of my songs. Like I say, Jukebox Heroes did. I've had some stuff on TV and things like that over the years. But again, I mean, if somebody wanted me to sit down and work with them to write an album or something like that, I'd happily do that for them. I mean, whether it would work or it wouldn't work, who knows? But again, to me, it's really not a big focus for me. The focus for me is just try to write the next best song.
Well, it's got to be hard. Try not to. You mentioned you don't want to write the same album twice. It's also, when you write that many songs, you probably find yourself revisiting like certain phrasings. Like I noticed on the Follow Angels Level Up song off 4, it's got a similar lyric cadence to an Am Girl Sperm song called Playground, which
sure.
I was listening to the Follow Angel stuff. I'm like, oh, that sounds like, the same, but it's got to be hard not to duplicate even things as small as like a lyrical cadence.
It is. And it's funny because the little themes, Mark Goldie teases me all the time. He says, you know, I've gotten a lot of mileage out of the 5 chords that I know. And that's very true. So there's only a certain amount of ways I can do the few chords that I know. And so, yeah, I do tend to go back to certain passes or certain things. And even lyrically, you know, like when I'm writing, sometimes there's a theme. Like if you listen to the second Am Girl Sperm album, you'll notice in the middle of the album, it's "they say" is a big theme in like 4 of the tracks. Like I purposely put that same line in the songs because I was trying to make the point of it's no longer, she's not really in control anymore. It's all these other people around her, the record producers and the band members and the public. And so sometimes like lyrically you'll find in my songs that I come back to certain themes as well. And I do that from album to album sometimes without thinking about it. And all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, God, I kind of said that somewhere else. But I think that's okay if you're kind of copping your own stuff. I guess that's all right. The Beatles did it.
Yeah, I've also commandeered a few of his songs. The song, is it called Last Night? Is that the title of it? From the new album, he does a full version of it. It was his song, and then I was like, ooh, I think Girl Sperm needs that song. So I just took it.
We kicked some.
Yeah,
last
that
night.
one.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's a great song. So I've done that. On the first album, I took, I'm going to blank on the name of it right now, but I took one of the songs, too, that he was writing for his album, and I'm like, oh, no, I really want that one. So sometimes I think that's where the sounds will, you know, mingle a little bit because I'll borrow his songs that I like. And there's one that he wrote before I even met him that's going to be on the 3rd album because I've always loved it. And I'm like, I would really like to cover that.
And it happened to work with the theme, you know. So, yeah. I mean, I think that's true of all artists. You know, if you listen to anybody who's recorded a lot of material, even when you're trying very hard not to duplicate or repeat stuff, I think you have certain ideas, you have a certain view of the world, you have a certain innate ability to write in a particular, you know, way, and that just comes through, you know. So I think it's what makes, you know, Fryman music, and you know, but I think it's also what creates the challenge of trying to do something different, you know, is to avoid writing that same. It would be very easy for me to write, you know, another Fall Away Angels album that sounded just like the first one. That would be easy. But to try to make the band evolve over 4 albums is kind of the project, you know. How do you keep saying something new with those same players? That to me is a really interesting challenge. You know,
We had a question here from Bob Minter. Being in so many studio sessions, have you ever done horn arrangements or considered horns?
Well, I've used some horns. I've used, I think on 2 or 3 songs, I had Tom Sobel and some of his pals do a horn arrangement. We used Jason on the latest Fryman Project. So yeah, we've done some horns. I would love one of the things I would love to do, like you know, kind of a big mouth horn album. I just don't know if I can write that kind of rhythm and blues stuff. I'd have to really kind of work at it. But that is a challenge that I've always wanted to write one of those albums. So someday I'd like to do that.
Are you careful not to get too crazy with adding things that you're not typically putting in songs that could quickly spiral into pushing a project out all of a sudden, you know, months?
Yeah, well, I get these strange ideas, like the most recent 2 two projects, the two Fryman Project albums that we put out, I had this crazy idea of writing an album really with the main instrument being the cello. And I wanted to do all these crazy things with the cello. I wanted to have the cello be distorted. I wanted to run it through like Leslie's and do all this weird stuff and really limit the guitars and have, instead of having electric guitars, have just this whacked out cello. And so I started writing that album with this idea in mind. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out that way. It ended up kind of taking a slightly different turn, but we did still end up using cello on 3 or 4 of the tracks, or 5 of the tracks, I think. So yeah, I mean, sometimes you start off with an idea and you start moving down that, and then you realize, well, it's just not going to work, or I'm not capable of writing it, or whatever it might be. But yeah, you got to be careful. But to me, since I write all the time, I write so much, sometimes the fun is to write stuff that just doesn't work, and then you just kind of sock it away, and who knows, 10 years later, maybe it works.
You mentioned on the Into the Music podcast, which if people haven't checked that out yet, you can find that on Into the Music's website. You talked about being in the Waist High Bandits with Kurt, the drummer from Fun with Adams.
Yes.
Fun with Adams is one of those bands that I would say they're a legendary band from the Fox Cities.
Yeah.
How was it to work with Kurt? And are there any other bands that you would consider instrumental as far as the sound and the history of the Fox Cities?
Well, working with Kurt was incredible. I mean, again, you sort of end up, I actually met Kurt because I was working with him when we were in the dental supply business. We were both sales guys, and he's such an incredible drummer. He's just this very straight ahead, solid drummer. And this was very early in the days when I first started writing music and, was first starting to play live. And so to have that very consistent, right in the pocket kind of groove was very, very helpful for me, and really was a big part of the sound of the Waist High Bandits, I think. He has a very unique style. If you listen to the stuff he plays on our albums, if you listen to the stuff that he plays on Fun with Adams, he's got a very unique style. And so I think that was a big part of what drove that acoustic alternative vibe was his drum sound. And so, yeah, that band has been around for, oh my God, what is it, 40 years now? I don't know. But they've got a very unique sound and an incredible sound. And Rick and Dan are amazing players and songwriters and singers. And, there's other bands, we were talking about, the Traveling Suitcases, which I really like, Kurt Gunn and, those guys, Brad, and some of those singer-songwriter guys, I really, really like. I'm very influenced, I'm more influenced by sort of the vibe of things than I am necessarily like exactly how people do things, or like I can't listen to a song and figure out what the chords are. I can't do that. But I can listen to a progression and say, wow, that was interesting how they went into that bridge, or it was really, interesting how they did a full verse and then a half verse, half bridge, or something like that. So some of that stuff becomes very interesting to me. And in this area, there's such a wide variety of singers, songwriters, bands, that if you really want to get influence, you go down to the Mile of Music, or you go down, to the Appleton clubs, you're going to see stuff that you can't help but be influenced by, Well,
you're normally around taking photos at Mile of Music.
Yep.
I saw you this year. I got a paparazzi-like photo of you.
Yeah.
What draws you to photography, and how is that outlet different from the music?
Well, photography was really, for me, something I started doing in high school. And I really enjoyed it. I had actually built my own dark room in my house when I was a kid. I had a dark room for about a month. And then my mom decided she was selling our house. So I ended up losing my dark room. But I really enjoyed, I enjoyed photography as a kid, and got back into it later in life. I went off to college, and I really didn't, shoot pictures or, anything. But when, we started having kids, I wanted to kind of document, having kids and that sort of things. And then digital photography was hitting, and that was kind of interesting. But again, when COVID hit, is really when I got really kind of obsessed. Betsy can tell you. I found one of my dad had bought me when I was a kid in high school. My dad bought me a Canon AE1 film camera. And when COVID hit, like everybody else, you're looking for things to do. I was cleaning the basement, and I found my old camera, and I thought, boy, I wonder if this thing would still work. And I didn't even know if you could still get film, Turned out you could. So I got some film, and I shot a roll through it, and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And so I started watching all these, YouTube things about cameras, and then I started collecting film cameras. And I don't even know how many I have. I'm embarrassed to say, but I went from 35 millimeter to 110, and bigger film, and then bigger cameras, and it's just kind of gotten out of control. But to me, it's a great outlet because you don't have to really think about it necessarily. You can just kind of go out and see and observe. And, it's kind of like going on a hunt, I think. I've never gone hunting, but to me, it's like that's sort of the idea to me is I'm out, I'm kind of looking for things, and I might see something special, and you can capture that one little instant, 1/100th of a second you're capturing, and it'll be there forever, And then for me, I do this platinum palladium printing, which is a very kind of antique way of printing pictures. And it just sort of, to me, it's like you're creating these things that will last hundreds of years, as long as my wife doesn't throw them away when I die. They'll last 300 years, so it's kind of an interesting thing, to me. But it's very different, like where music to me is very, you really got to be thinking about things, and you really got to be focused on it. Whereas photography for me is more about, you can just be out in the environment, and you're sort of capturing whatever moment happens to appear before you. So I think it uses different parts of your brain.
It's been really great, though, because he's documented, all of the big events in our life. And our oldest daughter got married this month in Vegas, and he was able to bring a camera and shoot pictures. And the style that he does it in is so unique. It's not what you get from, formal photographers, and it's a cool gift that he's able to bring to so many things. He'll go out and take pictures of a really interesting looking farmer. Like he'll just go right up and ask if he can take a picture, but then he'll do a print of it, like that platinum palladium, and he'll bring it back to them and gift it to them. And I just think it's really cool, the way that he does that.
Well, we talked about it the last time you were here too. You will make books, and they end up in the studio at Rock Garden, and I always enjoy thumbing through those when I'm at the studio.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's just I don't like to have free time. I like to be busy, and so it's just another thing that keeps me kind of moving.
So the second Am Girl Sperm album is a picture of Betsy again. What made you decide to use the picture that you did?
Well, she's the lead singer, so she's she should be the front and center. That particular picture,
this picture isn't really center; it's like front and down.
Yeah, it's well, what it was is I had this idea a long time ago to shoot Betsy dressed up as one of these roller derby girls, like a roller skate girl, and so that actually was a picture we shot for that.
Yeah, the rest of the photo, I'm wearing roller skates and like an 80s style.
Yeah.
That's why the old style rainbow shirt.
Right.
I was dressed up in full 80s roller derby gear.
Yeah. But I just thought it sort of worked. I think it's kind of a weird angle. It puts you a little bit off. You can't really tell because it's like this old school shirt she's wearing, so you don't know, is this from the 80s? Is it for, So it kind of, to me, it sort of just creates, again, the vibe of, like, when is this story being told? Is it being told today? Is it being told from the viewpoint of 10 years ago or 20 years ago? So, I don't know. It just sort of fit the vibe. And we decided this time, every other time we've actually put out physical CDs, and this time we decided to just release it online and then to make some CDs, because we keep handing out CDs and everybody says we don't have anything to play them on
Right.
anymore. It's a tragedy, but so this time it's just the one picture, and I thought it sort of had to set a mood. And I guess I'll leave it up to everybody else to decide if it worked or not. But
Well, not only are you recording a lot of music, taking a lot of pictures, you also spoke at to Be the Light walk. And I know that's kind of gets into your life outside of the music. Can you tell us a little bit about why that means so much to you?
yeah, well, unfortunately, I've had quite a number of people in my life who have committed suicide, including my best friend, my roommate at college. So to me, I had an opportunity to get involved with an organization that is really dedicated to preventing suicide, but not only preventing suicide by raising money, but also to help people who have gone through the tragedy of suicide, whether they're a loved one or somebody, a friend, or whatever the case might be. But this event really just brings healing. It's kind of hard to describe until you've been down there and seen it, but it really is a very cathartic event. It gives people an opportunity to laugh and smile. It gives you an opportunity to kind of grieve. It gives you an opportunity to be around other people who are in a similar situation. We have lots of resource tables and things down there. So it's an amazing event, and I'm so proud to be part of it. I'm a very tiny little part of an organization that does amazing work, and Sarah and Eric and Sean and all the people who really do the heavy lifting of that. But it's a great thing, and it's a really amazing event. If you ever want to be part of something that can truly make a difference, I would say that's one of those things that can really do that. So it's great. Thank you for mentioning that.
Well, I think it's an important topic to talk about. It's one of those things that isn't really talked about a lot, and it does, like you said, it seems like there's a lot of people that are affected. So if people are interested, they can Google Be the Light. Yeah,
you can go to bethelight.com, and there's a web page there. You can certainly always reach out to the coalition, which the Coalition for Suicide Prevention, which is what we raise money for. They do a lot of programming in the communities and in the schools and things like that. But if you're in crisis, there's hotlines, and there's 911 and all those kinds of things that take advantage of those services. But more importantly, just be a light for somebody. If you see somebody who's down or depressed, or you're worried about them, don't be afraid to talk to them. That's the biggest thing. Is we're trying to say it's okay to have those feelings. It's okay to be in that position, and it's okay to talk about it, because for a long time people haven't wanted to talk about it, and when you don't talk about it or you don't try to get help, that's really where, unfortunately, the end result is not good. So so it's a great organization, bethelight.com, I think it is, and join us next September.
We're going to take a commercial break, and then when we come back, we've got a special treat.
Oh, boy.
Fryman's going to play a couple songs live, which is something that you don't normally do. When was the last time you played acoustically like this?
This will be the first time in probably 15 years.
Well, we're honored to have you do this on the station, and stick around. It's Fryman on WCZR Code Zero Radio.
Well, this is a track that's going to be on our next Am Girl Sperm record, and if you want to know how you write punk songs on an acoustic guitar, this is sort of how I do it. So.
Yeah, that was pretty intense there. I don't know. That's probably a barrage of aggressiveness coming over the speakers there.
It's acoustic punk. I don't know. Maybe that's a whole new thing.
There you go.
I've invented a new genre.
So what's the next track?
So this next song is a tune called Alien Flowers, and it's probably the favorite song I've ever written. It's the first song that I ever wrote that I played for my mom, and she was like, now that's a good song. And when I played it for my buddy Lamar, he said, that's the first really good song you've ever written, Fryman. So, you know, there's an interesting story of Todd Rundgren. The first song he ever wrote was Hello, It's Me. And I kind of feel like this is sort of my Hello, It's Me. It's like the best first song I ever wrote. So, anyways, we'll see how it turns out. I haven't played this one in, 20 years. I've seen alien flowers.
Yeah.